Welcome. I'm Julie Bacon, and you're listening to the Mindset Coaching for Handlers podcast, a podcast for dog handlers who are on a mission to achieve big goals. Here I share lessons, insights, personal stories, and tools you can apply during your next show, trial, or test to help you strengthen your mental game and hopefully cue more consistently. Be sure to check out the show notes where you'll find details about the episodes, plus important links, including the link to the Dogged Planner and Workbook created just for handlers on a mission. So if you're ready to improve your competitive mindset, get out of your own way, and connect with your dog like never before, then it's time to get comfy, bring an open mind, and work your mindset. Hey there, and welcome back to the podcast. Okay, this week we're talking about the mashup that is confidence and goals, and how, yes, confidence is learnable, but also you need the right goals behind it so that you are feeling that sense of accomplishment. And while this topic has been underway for a minute, I do have to say it's a little bit of a let's say fortuitous coinkydink, because not only am I redoing my my confidence masterclass, so that's coming out soon, and the members are testing it this month and next month, but also, wait for it, the 2026 planner is out. It has dropped. It is available. The link is in the show notes. Go check it out. Grab it for yourself. Grab it for somebody else. It also makes a great Christmas gift. Just saying. So this does seem like the perfect time to talk about the necessary part of building your confidence, which is setting appropriate goals. Okay. And I think we tend to separate these two. You know, I've talked in several episodes in the last couple months about confidence and about how it's a learnable skill and the different ways that we can do that. But I don't think that I've really talked about the importance of setting the right kind of goals when you are trying to build your confidence, because the wrong kind of goals certainly can derail you or make you feel like a big old failure when that's really not the case. Okay. So I also want to kind of connect the fact that, you know, just because something is learnable, like confidence or like a skill, a handling skill, right? It doesn't mean that it's not also fragile, right? Like, one of those things, like think about a skill that you use as a handling skill. Like 1 minute you feel like you've got it, it's locked in, you've gotten it every time at home, and then you walk in the ring and it falls apart, right? It's just fragile. It's not battle tested, okay? So confidence is a little bit like that too, in that we're building, but also it needs to be maintained. And every once in a while, when our confidence wanes, we'll be like, hang on, I was literally like on top of the world last weekend, and this weekend I feel like I can't do anything right. And first of all, not alone. You're not alone. Everybody feels that way sometimes. But also, it's okay that you feel that way, because yes, confidence can be fragile like that, and it needs some support. And I'm going to argue today that a lot of that support can come from setting the right kind of goals for yourself, for your dogs, so that you can see the progress, right? And as always, I need you to write it down so that you can have something to look back to. You know, if you're just kind of looking back or staring out the window and saying like, wow, how was I in May, without being able to like go back into your notes and see, well, wait, what were we struggling with in May? How were things going that month? Like, have I made progress? Is that progress tangible? Because sometimes when we're in a funk or we're down on ourselves or we're feeling fragile, we don't feel like we've made progress, which is why we need to lean on the goals, the process goals, the writing it down, the feedback, in order to accurately assess whether or not we're making progress. Or maybe we're making progress in a different direction because we changed our mind or something like that, right? So the thing that I see a lot of times is handlers feel like lost, or they feel like their confidence is waning, when actually what's happening is they just have like their goals are misaligned with reality, right? They're misaligned with what the dog needs at that moment, like what's an appropriate goal for the dog, or even what's an appropriate goal for the handler, So we want to make sure that we build our belief in ourselves, right? Because that's what confidence is. Confidence is that you trust yourself, right? And we're not confident in every situation, but we trust ourselves in this situation, and we're building confidence in that situation. And we haven't even begun to touch the other situation, so we don't have very much faith in ourselves in that. And that's really what confidence comes down to, right? So when we set the wrong goals, then we don't necessarily trust that we can achieve that goal. Okay? Or we don't trust that we will do the right thing in that circumstance. Okay? So, for instance, you move up a class. Okay? You move up a class. And you've been working on the skills, but you get there and like the setup, the course, the whatever it is, depending on the venue, of course, is a little bit like, ooh, that's going to be a tough one. And all of a sudden you feel that shake, that internal shake of your confidence. And you wonder like, ooh, am I able to do that? Okay. So that shake is you not really trusting yourself fully, i.e. not fully being confident in that moment. Okay. So what you can do to feel confident in that moment as you are leveling up, for instance, and this is just one example, is make sure that you set an appropriate goal. Like maybe you need to change your process goal. Maybe you thought like driving over that it was going to be one thing, but as you kind of see the setup, the situation, the course, etc., you realize, you know what? I need to change my process goal today. Or instead of thinking that this outcome is possible, now what I would actually feel more confident in is if I just went in the ring and really tried to nail, a certain handling skill. Okay, because I'm in control of that. I can work on that. That's 100% within my control, which means it's a process goals, which means I feel a lot more confident about being able to execute that, i.e. I have faith and trust in myself. Did you follow all that? I hope. Because that is really how goals and confidence work off of each other. And when we are aligned, it's beautiful. But when we are misaligned, the goals that we set can actually work against us. And that feels like the worst. It just feels terrible. And so we don't want that mismatch. The mismatch erodes confidence, but when we have that confidence and alignment with our goals, now we have like that, remember that we talked about before, that self-trust in motion. Okay? And again, that's what confidence is. All right. So when our goals fit the actual like season, and what I mean by that is like your dog's readiness for a certain level or a certain opportunity, let's say, or, it fits a schedule or your energy, then you start believing and you start stacking up those kind of believable wins. And remember, a win doesn't have to be the color of the ribbon. The win can be a personal win, a process goal win, like getting your start line stay perfectly, getting the weaves, getting the beautiful figure eight, finally getting the drop on recall, whatever that is. Okay. A win is what you say it is. And whenever we make those small wins, they start to add up as evidence. I love my evidence, okay? And that evidence turns into belief, and that belief becomes confidence, okay? Because what we think about ourselves is what we turn into, right? Because it's where we put our focus. It's what we believe. Remember, our thoughts turned into our beliefs, turned into our actions that we're willing to take, and then, of course, the results that we get. So when we believe in ourselves, then we take that action, that self-trust in motion, and then we get much better results. And then the spiral goes upward instead of feeling that like downward spiral that, we have been familiar with. We've been there before. Okay. So our brain through this process is literally learning safety. and success through this repetition. So, it sounds, I'm going to use just a silly example, but like if you are like trying to get faster at running, say, I said it was silly. Okay. I preface this with it's a silly example, but it just popped into my head. So picture like a track, one of those old school, like red kind of tracks, right? And if you say, I'm going to run to that post out there, like I'm going to run that far, and you do it, then you're like, oh, I did it. This is great. Okay. So tomorrow when I come back, I'm going to run to the second post. And then the next day I'm going to run to the third, and so on. Okay. Whereas if you go the first day and you haven't run in a while, same fitness level, and you say, see that post 10, I'm going to run there. Well, if you're like getting to post 5 and you're feeling like you're going to throw up, as I would, I'm just personalizing because I'm not a runner. But if you feel like that, now your confidence is taking a hit. Okay. So I'm not telling you to lowball your goals because it's not my style for sure. But I am telling you to set realistic goals. It would be realistic for me, as someone who does not run, I do work out, it's just not running, to say that like, you know what? On day 1, I'm only going to run to the first post. And day 2, I'm going to run a little farther and so on each day. And that's how I'm going to build. So just like we build fitness a little bit at a time, we can use our goals as stepping stones for our confidence, enjoying small wins, small successes that build on each other each day. And I know that when I say it this way, you're like, duh. However, what I know happens from all of my coaching sessions, my one-on-ones, that we tend to set giant goals and like either wing it or say we'll figure it out later, or we put ourselves so far out of our comfort zone. And then when we don't achieve them, we feel like giant failures. But the truth is we set that up when we wrote down the goal. Okay. Again, I don't want you to sandbag, lowball, insert whatever your description is of like too easy goal here. I want you to have realistic goals, and realistic goals are based on this, call it a season, but like it based on the readiness of your dog, the readiness of you, maybe the environment. Like for instance, I'm about to leave on a little road trip to take one of my dogs to their first draft test. Karting, for those of you who aren't into that. And she is definitely prepared in terms of skills. She has been to some different sites, but not a ton. But she has never been to a draft test with the energy of it and all the things that go on at a trial. So she's never competed in that. And she's my dog who stresses up. So people before, oh, is she ready? How are you going to do? Good luck. Oh, you'll do great. All the stuff that you hear from very supportive friends. And I have said back, maybe. Because my goals for her aren't necessarily to, in this case, they call it pass or fail versus queuing. But my goal isn't necessarily for her to pass. My goal is for her to feel like confident and do well. Because again, me, I like to invest in the long game. There's going to be many more draft tests in her future. And I don't know that given her experience, her exposure, her tendency to stress up in new environments, I don't believe that other people's goals of me queuing is really the right goal for her. Okay? Because it's not the season she's in. She's not like a tried and true draft dog. She has a skill. She's trained. She knows the job. But in a new environment, in a new energy, a new park, whatever, it might not be appropriate. So my job is to figure out what are appropriate goals, not only to build my confidence in her, and I have a lot of draft experience, so I'm going to have more confidence than she's going to have that day. But my job is to build confidence in her by making it easy and obvious and clear and simple for her so that she recognizes this same sport, but in this different context, in the context of a show environment, we'll call it. Okay. So that's why just because you have all the experience, your dog might not, right? We have to make sure that everything is in alignment. And so we have the appropriate goals with the dog in front of us, with the version of us that shows up. All of it has to be aligned, because otherwise, if we I don't want to say dream too big, but like put out an unrealistic goal and then fall short, then we're just going to get mad at ourselves. Okay? Does it make sense? All right. I'll give you some plans for sure when we come back. If you love this podcast, you'll love the Q membership. Each month, we tackle topics like ring nerves, confidence, and mental toughness, breaking them down into bite-sized, actionable lessons. You'll also get a private Facebook group for support and access to all of my online courses. It's like having a mindset coach in your pocket. Ready to get started? Join us. The link is in the show notes or head to theqcoach.com. Back to the episode. So some things to think about when your confidence starts to slip or your plan starts to slip or you start to feel that you feel like you're setting realistic goals, but they're just not happening. And so you're like, am I misaligned or am I not ready? Or should I just be bummed out? Like, how should I feel about this? And before you go into like storytelling mode, right? Like telling stories about what it means to not cue, because we know that's dangerous. So before you go into all that, I want you to think about some of these things, okay? The first thing I want you to realize is life is messy. Competition is messy. The reason it's hard is because it's messy, okay? If this was so easy, everybody would be doing it. You'd be high in trial every weekend. Everybody would be high in trial every weekend because everybody would be doing well. Like, it's not. It's a sport, okay? It's hard. It's hard. It's hard on, we have teammates we can't really converse with particularly. It's hard. So don't be so hard on yourself that you're so busy telling stories about yourself and what it means that you're not getting this, that you don't see the opportunities in front of you. You don't see the progress that you're making. You don't see all that. Because the problem is when we go to that I'm going to say like that pity party place, okay, which we all get, like, my friend says 5 minutes in the bitch barn, okay, so you get to vent it out, you get to get rid of it, all right, but when we stay there, when we choose to stay there and feel bad for ourselves, we forget to see the opportunities. We forget to see the progress. And that's sometimes why you need to talk it through with somebody. Start with the venting, but end with the solution of like, okay, what am I going to do about it? Or how are we making progress week over week, month over month? Okay. So life is messy. You're going to be misaligned from time to time. Just don't go so deep on the storytelling and giving it meaning that isn't really true. Okay. The next thing I want you to do is don't scrap your plan. There might not be anything wrong with your plan, with your goals, with your process goals. Those might all be great. Okay. So instead of scrapping it, like, get simple, get really simple, shrink your focus on like one small, clear goal or process goal. That is way better than five goals, right? Or working on 5 things at once. Just work on one thing. When I coach handlers and they're really getting sort of in their feels and really getting nervous or really feeling bummed out or not feeling confident, the thing that I always tell them is just make it simple. Make it the simplest you possibly can, because your brain is full and you need to just hone in on one thing, get really focused and obsessive about it, and focus on making progress in that one area instead of expecting progress in 5 areas. Okay. The next thing I want you to remember is confidence thrives on completion. So make sure that you're giving yourself a chance to finish something. So often we get close enough and move on, or even with skills, when we're training skills in ourselves and our dogs, we're like, yeah, that's close enough. That's close. That's it, and we just move on. But we get really confident when we complete something, when we really and fully cross it off the list, whether that is building a new skill, making progress on one, making progress in the ring, for a baby dog, just going into the ring might be progress. Going into the ring and holding it together, right, might be progress because it can be so overwhelming. But, changing context or environments, so just make sure that you are giving yourself a chance to finish the plan and see the plan through. because I think if we're being honest, a lot of us finish some of these plans about 70, 80, maybe 90%. But if we're being honest, we're not giving the plan enough time to see 100%. Okay. And finally, I want you to remember that trying harder is not necessarily the way to get there. So if you keep feeling like, oh my God, I'm trying so hard, I'm working so hard, I'm just hitting my head against the wall, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, you probably are, but maybe you're doing all of this effort, but it's not in alignment. So maybe you're not in alignment, or your goals aren't the right fit for the season that you're in, or your dog's in, or for the environment, or for the trial or the event or the show. So make sure that everything, like, stand back and make sure that everything is in alignment. You know, if you're going to, a big national or open or cup or regional or whatever it is, like, make sure that you have the right, goals set up for that. Because there's a really big difference of taking like a 3-year-old for their first time to something like that, and you want them to just get a really good experience. You're playing the long game. You want them to be good, when they qualify again in a couple of years. Versus a dog that is 6 or 7. You've been doing this a while. It's the 4th or 5th time there. Those are really different expectations. Those should not be the same goals. Podium is not the same, for both of those situations. So again, are your goals appropriate to where your team is, right? And it's it's a complex team. All right. So just to kind of bring it all back together. So your confidence is going to come from alignment plus evidence plus repetition. Okay. So I'll say that again. Your confidence, which remember is your faith and your trust in action, equals alignment. So the alignment of your goals plus evidence that it's working plus repetition over and over again, right? Not just one time. It's not just a fluke. Okay. When goals make sense, the plans keep them alive, and the reflection back on those plans keeps your belief growing. Okay? So when the goals make sense, the plans keep them alive, keep those goals alive, and your reflection on that keeps your beliefs growing in the positive direction, obviously. Okay? And if you're doubting yourself right now, don't chase more grit, right? Don't just try harder. Check your goals. Do they make sense for where you are today? Maybe they made sense last weekend, but maybe you're not there this week, right? Or maybe your dog's not there, or who knows? Maybe you had the stomach flu this week. You're just coming back from it. Who's to know? Okay. And by all means, write it down, track it, because you're going to see that you're not, even though you aren't where you want to be, you aren't where you used to be either. And you're only going to see that looking in the rear view mirror, looking back, really 90 days or more. That's when you're really going to start to see that oh, I'm definitely making progress. We definitely aren't where we used to be. Okay. Because confidence is learnable because it's built through aligned action. Okay. Every time your goals make sense, you make progress, and that progress is your proof, or as I like to say, your evidence. All right. So think about that this week. Try to make some goals. Please write them down. And as you're looking to the weekend and you're trying to figure out kind of what your theme or what success looks like for the weekend, ask yourself the really honest question. Are my goals appropriate for where we are this weekend? I know I will be driving and asking myself that a lot and really honing my goals, as I drive west, to go to this draft test, for instance, and because I want to make sure that I'm showing up in the right way for my teammate. Okay, so I hope you do the same. And no matter what you're up to this week, I hope you have a fantastic week with your dogs. Thanks so much for listening to the Mindset Coaching for Handlers podcast with me, Julie Bacon. I am so grateful for your precious time. Check out my Dogged Planner workbook and journal available on Amazon. Just search for Dogged Planner. I also offer monthly membership that's perfect for ongoing support of your awesome goals. Check out theqcoach.com for details, or just stop by and check out all the ways you can work on your mindset. And be sure to follow me on Facebook and Instagram at The Q Coach and let me know how it's going. Finally, please share, subscribe, and leave a review. This helps us podcasters tremendously. Plus, I know I get my best podcast recommendations from friends. Thanks, and have a great week with your dogs.